operating from Russia to influence the election.
Mueller out, but what's next?
I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican, in that order.
Are you ready for President Pence? It's Narrative Live with Zev and Tracy. Hey, Tracy, how are you?
Hi, Zev.
I'm laughing because there's been mass pandemonium here in the last minute as I've been trying to figure out why things were just the way they were today. Technically. So I'm laughing
okay.
and everything's fine. Did you like the new Open?
I love the new Open.
I'm accidentally streaming on your feed, by the way, because I think I made it go live. So if I might be there.
Okay, well, I retweeted it too, so then we'll just have two of them on my feed.
Wherever you are, we're glad you're joining us tonight on Narrative Live. I'm Zev Shalev. Tracy McElroy is in Baltimore, and we have a fantastic show today because I don't know about you guys, but yesterday felt like deliverance. You know, we finally heard from Mueller. We finally figured out the truth was what we were saying all along, which is, thank God, was right. Because for a while there, I was like, really? Were we so wrong?
We were questioning our sanity there for a little while, Zev.
And, you know, it's like nirvana. Like, I mean, we finally landed on the day of, you know, where we wanted everything we got yesterday, except it's not as nice as an outcome as we may expect it. We'll go through that today because the options looking down the pike here are not like fantastic. You know, if you're looking sort of between bad and really bad. So we'll walk you through that throughout the show today. And also later on, we have some a really fun mashup coming of Donald Trump and Mueller going head to head on tape, defending the indefensible and making the most rational accusation you've ever heard.
We like to call it what we think might be the future impeachment trial. We're going to just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's a trailer, and it's coming soon
Right.
later on in today's show. But first, let's get you into the news with the starting block. The starting block, three big stories in the news normally, but today, three big parts of one big story. Tracy, what do these guys have to do with each other?
Yeah, so there was some breaking news yesterday, Zev, out of the Miami Herald, and we have got to congratulate them on the great investigative
They
journalism.
do great work on this.
They are
This story,
doing
all
on
the stories
Trump.
they've been doing, yeah.
Yeah, so apparently federal prosecutors have demanded the Cindy Yang records from not only Mar-a-Lago, but the Trump campaign. What's up with that, Zev?
I mean, that's really interesting. Of course, let's remind everyone that Cindy Yang is the massage parlor owner from, I guess it's Palm Beach. Is the name, maybe no,
That
Jupiter.
area,
Jupiter
yes.
was the name of the town. You might remember a while ago, Patriots owner, Mr. Kraft, John Kraft, Jim Kraft, somebody Kraft.
Robert Kraft. I know
Roberts.
you're not a
Robert
football
Kraft.
guy.
I'm not a football guy. Robert Kraft got, you know, caught with his pants down, literally in a rub and tug, and it sort of opened the eyes of the FBI and many of us to what could be potentially a giant human trafficking scandal that not only involves people being trafficked from China to work as sex slaves here in the United States, but also may have embroiled some very well-known people in our society, mostly men. And some people who might be involved in the inner Trump circle. And so it's
I'd just
interesting.
like to say that we speculated back then when that story broke, when we actually did a show on it, and we told everybody then, watch this story, it is going to explode.
It is, and it's, you know, the thing is, there were clues all the way through this that this was going to be a big story, and it certainly looks like it is becoming a huge story, and it threatens, you know, the very fabric of sort of the existence of white male society in the United States, and it's really interesting as well that a lot of the money seems to be funneled from the Chinese, from the intelligence services, from the mob in China into the Trump campaign. That's what the FBI is investigating. It's an incredibly rich story, which we're going to tell you a lot more about as we continue to follow it. But yesterday's developments were particularly interesting because it wasn't just Cindy Yang and Mar-a-Lago that landed up getting called. It was also the Trump victory campaign offices. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, what's really important about this is that Trump's 2020 reelection campaign aligned itself with this Trump victory PAC. So instead of them being two separate entities, they've almost become one at this point. They share offices together. if you're going to send a subpoena to Trump 2020, you're also involving the RNC and the Trump Victory PAC, and wow.
Let me actually correct you. They are one and the same now.
Yes.
It's really not
Yes.
that they, in his effort to try and avoid any primaries, because he's that kind of guy,
Exactly.
Donald Trump decided to, fuse his efforts with the Republican National Congress's efforts, and that's how they landed up creating this monstrous empire called the Victory Fund that's now Campaign 2020. They're just basically this now, and they got subpoenaed.
And I believe
they
it
got subpoenaed
represents,
yesterday.
Yeah, and I
So-
believe that it represents like 11 states as well. And that,
Yeah, the RNC has 11 state Republican committees that partially control the RNC's Victory Fund, and the rest was Reince Priebus. Remember Reince? Missed you, Reince. So glad you're back in the news as part of this giant sex scandal. Reince Priebus is there. Woody Johnson, who is another football team leader, the Jets, I believe he owns. And then the other two, Steve Mnuchin and...
Elliot Broidy, who can forget him?
So it's like it's the president's mob bros, the guys who embezzle money as they do so well, and have been proven to do so well in the past, all getting caught up in what could be another scandal, and this one involving sex workers, human trafficking, Chinese mafia, Chinese espionage, you name it. Could this administration sink any lower? Well, it quite possibly may, and that is our lead story today. Because the lead story today is all about this guy, Mike Pence, who by all accounts seems destined to be the president of the United States of America, or at least he feels that he might be. And
He feels like he's been destined for a lot. When you hear his voice on the clips that we're going to show you, just pick your jaw up off the ground already. I'm warning you.
So to play this game, this segment, I need all of you to you gotta suspend your disbelief a little bit, zone out a little bit, imagine if you will, that Donald Trump has been impeached. His trial has gone to the Senate. And somehow, miraculously, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham have grown a backbone and have kicked him out of office, along with every other Republican senator. And without any advance warning, he is no longer there. You can imagine the scene at 1600 Pennsylvania.
I have visions of him on a helicopter waving as he takes off to head to Russia, maybe,
or jail. Or somewhere. Good, Tracy, you play this game really well. I like the way you imagine things. So if you will take it to the next level, the next thing that happens is this man becomes the president of the United States of America.
I'm grateful to be able to join you, if only by videotape, but I'm not sure how they introduce me. The introduction I prefer is pretty short. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order. And really, it's as a fellow believer that I'm particularly honored to be able to address you today. I know every one of us has our own story about how we came to faith. For me, I was raised in a family where faith was important. Church on Sunday, grace before dinner. But my faith became my own when I made a personal decision to trust Jesus Christ during the spring of my freshman year in college. That night, my heart was literally broken wide, with gratitude and with joy, when I came to realize that what happened on the cross, in some small measure, actually happened for me.
Yep. That's
did
what he sounds like.
Compare himself to Jesus Christ on the cross?
Well, he said he died for him. A little bit. Just a little bit for him. Didn't die in a big way. Just a little bit of death. Also interesting that he thinks of himself as a Republican, a conservative, and a...
He's a Christian first,
Christian
a
first.
conservative
Oh, thank you.
second, and a Republican third.
So thanks for clarifying what that might look like in the next administration. It's also really peculiar to me that he had this epiphany in his first year as a freshman there, when did he say his heart was cracked open or something?
Yeah, exactly. And it was his freshman year of college, and his heart was open to this.
I wonder what that was all about.
All I know for sure today is I need him more than ever. And he's really the center of my life and the center of my family's life.
Well, that's nice. It's nice to hear a man who's a devout Christian, and also okay with his homosexuality, and perfectly okay with those two things coinciding, and being
And it
positive
was
about that. So
it would be
it's nice
great
to
if
hear
that
that.
was the case, Zev, but don't think he was referring to himself being gay
Oh,
there.
he's not referring to that. But what about the rumors? There
No.
were rumors. There was Sean Ayres, the chief of staff, and then there was also there were gay parties right outside his house.
Oh, let there be gay parties. There were gay
They
parties.
were gay parties. Let's do it.
Gay rights activists welcomed one of their fiercest foes, the staunchly conservative Vice President-elect Mike Pence, to his new home with a block party, one complete with blaring Beyoncé songs and a sea of rainbow flags. About 200 people attended the queer dance party Wednesday night outside of the Washington, D.C. home Pence had been renting ahead of his inauguration. The idea is to leave a mark that Mike Pence will never forget, one protester said. We want to send a strong message to Pence that we're a united queer community. Pence is known for his anti-gay policies and opinions. During his tenure as Indiana's governor, he signed a law that allows businesses to deny services to gay, lesbian, and transgender customers. The discriminatory legislation prompted so much backlash, lawmakers were forced to amend it to protect the LGBT community.
So aren't you excited about a Pence administration now? It's going to be a great time. The parties are going to be amazing. Right outside the White House. You won't believe it. It'll be the best time
I
ever.
will roll the kegs up, dude. It will be my job.
You're on. So he's not obviously not going to be good on gay rights. I mean, he'll be good on Jesus, but not good on gay rights. Perhaps maybe he'll be good for women's rights and abortion and the like. Is there a possibility that might be the case? Let's ask him.
President Donald Trump will appoint justices to the Supreme Court who will uphold our Constitution and the rights of the unborn. President Donald Trump will appoint justices to the Supreme Court who will uphold our Constitution and the rights of the unborn.
Just had to play that twice to make sure you realize
Yeah, I mean,
how.
just to make sure everybody got that.
So, yeah.
Well, Zev, this goes back to when he was in Indiana. And in fact, the summer before he was elected as vice president, he had this crazy anti-abortion law going through.
Almost as crazy, if not more crazy, than what has now gone through in Louisiana and all the other states in the South that have now lost their minds.
Yes, and the women of that state did not take that too well. They started this Facebook page, and get this, it was called Periods for Pence. Not kidding. Not
So glad you got this segment.
And their point was, if fertilized eggs can be expelled during a woman's period, then hey, is that a miscarriage? Is that involuntary abortion? Well, they decided the best way to explain themselves to Pence was to put out his email and his office phone number, and all these women started telling him about their period, their tampons, their menopause symptoms, and it went viral.
Oh. Yes, good for them. And also,
that is my kind of protest.
Well, I can't take part in it, but I do appreciate that it exists. It's a fantastic protest and the kind of stuff that we may need, because when you look at the landscape of what's happening right now across the southern United States, there is a tremendous amount of movement on a state level into anti-abortion laws, which are not just antiquated, they are downright antiquated.
Right.
And of course, it's all lining up to get to the Supreme Court of the United States, which is now stacked with, conservatives and who might pass or might repeal, Roe versus Wade. This is not something to be taken lightly. I think, honestly, we are facing a social challenge in our time in the next couple of years, which, with the help of Mike Pence as president of the United States, could be quite dramatic. And so, we're raising the alarm today because it's important.
What was amazing to me on that graphic that we showed is just from March 2019 to May 2019 that all of these states are adopting these anti-abortion laws. I mean,
Yeah.
crazy.
So none of
In
this is
such a short
coincidence.
period of time.
Obviously,
No,
none
it's
of it is
all being
coincidence.
set up.
There's some grand plan to turn America back into the dark ages. Now, obviously, not going to be great on gay rights, not great on women's rights, not good for abortion rights. Probably not going to be great for racial rights either, or immigration rights. But the biggest issue of our time is climate change, and I'm sure he's got a plan for that.
In these troubled times at home and abroad, challenging times for American families, I'd like to encourage you to do one more thing, and that is to bow the head and bend the knee in the days that remain.
He did say the days that
got
remain.
cut off, but
Yeah.
that was the days that remain, right?
So
So this is the end of the world, and we need to all be praying to God and Vice President Pence to save ourselves.
I think
I
that's
don't think he's worried about climate change.
I
Zeb.
think he thinks climate change might actually be helpful, and it's written in the book. And if they all just repent and they bend the knee and pray, we will all be okay. And I have no reason at all to believe him. But because there are facts, there's lots of facts that are lining up on the other side about climate change that I guess this administration doesn't believe in or care about. And to make it even more annoying is that this guy Pence and his entire right-wing loony bin, fringe movement is funded by some very powerful guys. And there's this hilarious cartoon in the LA Times the other day from Horsey, and basically Pence is saying to Trump as he's being carted away, President Trump, it grieves me that you are unable to complete your term. I salute you, sir. Now, as America's new president, I promise a calm voice, a steady hand, and total transparency, starting with this revised presidential seal, which, as you can see, has the Koch Industries seal on it and the logo on it. And because this is, in fact, what's happening,
Right.
our politicians have been so corrupted. They're so owned by the interests of big money. So whether it's the DeVosses or the Kochs or, well, really it's those two that are so powerful that they've been able to rig the entire system. So they're not only the education minister and the governor and the vice president, and they're also the Supreme Court, and they're also every single congressman and every single senator. That it's become impossible to have a democratically elected government in this country anymore. And so without a doubt, from my perspective, I think that's the number one challenge any new democratic president needs to face. And maybe through all of this, we can sort of, not that I pretend to know what's going on in Nancy Pelosi's head, but maybe you can sort of see why Nancy Pelosi might not be too encouraged by the notion of impeachment, because a lot of people would say, hey, wait, this guy is an illegitimate VP. He was part of an illegitimate ticket. He shouldn't be allowed to be the vice president or the president. But if you look at the Mueller findings, the obstruction of justice is squarely about Donald Trump. There is no investigation of his obstruction of justice, of Pence's obstruction of justice. He's pretty much kept his hands clean. We believe that he actually was involved in some pretty funny stuff during the transition, but none of that, other than in some reports that we did on Narrative, has come to light in a big way. But, it's not like he's impeachable right now in any obvious way. And that means that, if an impeachment does go through, we're facing kind of this not great alternative. So why
Right.
bother? Why
And
bother?
I think, Zev, it's important to point out we chose to make this segment very lighthearted, and we did that for a reason, because in fact the reality of a Pence presidency is absolutely terrifying.
It's terrifying, and it's probably the most depressing story we've shared with you on the show, and it's sad to do it after a big day like Mueller yesterday. However, I do think that there's absolutely no chance if he was installed, and it would be an installation, he probably wouldn't be reelected. Well, I wouldn't want to chance it, and I certainly think would be better off almost with a Donald Trump in the White House through this chaotic next year than a Pence who will try to very quickly install a very sort of theocratic government in America, which is the last thing any of us need. So on that cheerful note, let's move on to the last segment of the day. So we've been using our imagination, and just before the imagined Mike Pence inauguration as the president of the United States, there would have been a really exciting impeachment trial, and it would happen in the Senate. And we'd still like this part to happen because it would just be gripping to watch. And because we don't actually have an ability to travel in time to see what that impeachment trial will be like, we've been able to put together on tape our idea of what it might look like. And so, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen.
Enjoy this, you guys.
Oh, wait, I can't find it right now. There it is. All right. Okay, so yeah, pay attention. It's kind of interesting to listen to the two arguments back and forth. I present to you the impeachment trials in preview.
Russian intelligence officers who were part of the Russian military launched a concerted attack on our political system.
No, Russia did not help me get elected. You know who got me elected? You know who got me elected? I got me elected.
That they used sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign.
There was no crime, and it came out that there was nothing to do with Russia.
The releases were designed and timed to interfere with our election and to damage a presidential candidate.
That Russia would rather have Hillary Clinton as president.
A private Russian entity engaged in a social media operation where Russian citizens posed as Americans in order to influence an election.
The whole thing is a scam. It's a giant presidential harassment.
Our conclusion that there was insufficient evidence to charge a broader conspiracy.
I think he's totally conflicted because, as you know, he wanted to be the FBI director, and I said no.
The report describes the results and analysis of our obstruction of justice investigation involving the president.
There was no crime. They're saying he's obstructing something and there was no crime.
When a subject of an investigation obstructs that investigation or lies to investigators, it strikes at the core of their government's effort to find the truth and hold wrongdoers accountable.
And he loves Comey. You look at the relationship that those two, whether it's love or a deep like, but he was conflicted.
If we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
That means you're innocent. Excuse me. Then he should have said, you're guilty.
A president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional.
So he said, essentially, you're innocent. I'm innocent of all charges.
It would be unfair to potentially accuse somebody of a crime when there can be no court resolution of the actual charge.
Sir, he did not say that you were innocent. He said he didn't.
There was no crime, there was no charge because he had no information.
The opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing.
To me, it's a dirty word, the word impeach. It's a dirty, filthy, disgusting word, and it had nothing to do with me. So I don't think so.
Brilliant.
So.
Brilliant. I mean, can you see it? Him being questioned, and those being his answers. I loved it. I loved it.
Especially the, I think he's got this obsession about Comey and Mueller potentially having this, I guess he's saying an affair, which is so out of the realm of like realistic behavior, but it's sort of, he keeps referring to it in such graphic terms, and it's like, what is wrong with you? This is not a good defense. And then, it's not in that package, but I tweeted out earlier on today this sort of bizarre thing that he actually was helped by the Russians, but not as much as Hillary was helped by the Russians, and therefore he's the better option of the Russian. It's like, what is going on? These defense.
It's like that old saying where you just throw spaghetti at the wall or throw stuff at the wall and you see what sticks. I mean, I think that's what we've come down to.
He should just say, "Do you want Mike Pence? Because if you want Mike Pence, I'll go. But if you don't want Mike Pence, you leave me alone." That might be a better strategy. Anyway, that's our preview of what the impeachment trials might look like. And now it's time for the tweet of the day. Oh, where's the animation? I guess this is the animation. Tweet of the day. And the winner of the tweet of the day today goes to
it goes to our friend Dennis Herring.
Yay!
Watching Dennis, FDC Herring. Well, so apparently yesterday, Geraldo Rivera put out this tweet saying, "Fair warning, as I did with Bill Clinton in 1997-98, I tonight announce that if you want to impeach this president on these facts, you'll have to come through me."
Oh, Geraldo's
Well,
such a tough guy. So tough, Mr. Geraldo.
Dennis's tweet in response was just priceless. Take a look at that graph, and I don't know how people do this on Twitter. I can barely tweet without a typo.
I
But he's
tweet
got
only
this
with typos.
picture. He's got this graph of Congress and Supreme Court, and they must go through Geraldo to get to the president. And I just thought that was fantastic. So
Good,
thank
good work,
you,
Dennis. That is fantastic, and in fact, a true reflection of what it's like today in our democracy, where Geraldo Rivera is the only thing holding us from sanity. It's too bizarre for words because he really couldn't stop a thing. He's like a little guy, I think. That is our show tonight. We want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's been a good show, and we have still got an opportunity for you to join us on Patreon, where we invite subscribers to participate in our community and tell us what you think of the show, and you can watch the shows there. And it starts at $3. It's a good deal, and we had a great
is.
campaign. We really want to thank everyone who joined during our
Yeah.
campaign.
Just keep in mind, guys, that you're what's funding us. You're what's keeping us going. Without your help, we wouldn't be able to do it. And thank you to everybody who has joined us so far. We really appreciate
We
it.
really, really do. Thanks for joining us on Narrative. Have a great night, and we'll see you
Good night,
again back here
guys.
soon.